Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. The budget session will start tomorrow and the government will table the economic survey. Sources say government is likely to announce measures to provide some relief to the middle class and increase their spending power. Weighs potential tax relief for those earning up to 15 lakh rupees per annum. That's an exclusive.
We don't know what will happen with tariffs, with immigration, with fiscal policy, and with regulatory policy.
U.S. Federal Reserve leaves key interest rates unchanged in a widely anticipated move after 3 consecutive rate cuts. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says no need to hurry and adjust the policy stance. President Trump blasts the Fed, saying it failed to control inflation and did a terrible job on banking regulations. Union IT Minister Vaishnaw confirms that India will launch its own artificial intelligence model within the next 10 months. Says at least 6 developers have been identified who can roll this out within the time frame. Says government is bringing to the table the compute power of 18,600 GPUs, and of them, 10,000 are already in India. Union Minister Vaishnaw also says that the government will soon host Chinese AI model DeepSeek on Indian servers. The move is aimed at addressing data privacy concerns and enhancing India's AI capabilities. L&T reports a 17% growth in revenue and a 14% jump in Q3 profits. Margins contract, but the company reports the highest ever quarterly order inflow of more than 1 lakh crore rupees. The overall potential order pipeline stands at 5 lakh crore rupees. Microsoft earnings beat street, but cloud business growth hits a speed bump. Stock slips on the back of a weak revenue guidance. Meta shares surge after the company reports a beat on revenue and profit. Zuckerberg hints at a really big year in artificial intelligence. Tesla misses estimates. Automotive revenue drops 8%. Insurance regulator bars companies from raising premium for senior citizens by more than 10% without prior consultation. Insurers also need the regulator's approval to withdraw individual products meant for senior citizens. SEBI restricts financial influencers from using live stock prices to give trading advice even under the guise of educational content. Says they can only use stock prices with a 3-month delay. Bars regulated entities, including exchanges, from associating with those who violate the rules. An American Airlines passenger plane with 64 people on board collides with a U.S. military helicopter mid-air near Washington's Reagan Airport. Authorities say there are no survivors. Members of the U.S. figure skating team were on this flight. Arvind Kejriwal doubles down on his comment accusing Haryana government of polluting the Yamuna River. Chief Minister Atashi claims toxin levels have dropped after the Aam Aadmi Party raised the alarm. Manish Sisodia slams the BJP over law and order situation in the capital. Delhi votes on the 5th of February. Well, let's begin with a look at the day's trading action. The Lal Street ended largely higher, with the market managing to end in the green for the 3rd straight day. Now, Nifty held on to the 23,200 mark, supported by Reliance. The mid-cap index underperformed the blue chips, ending flat but with a slight negative bias. And while in some global news, the U.S. Federal Reserve left key interest rates unchanged in a widely anticipated move after 3 consecutive rate cuts. Now, addressing a press conference, the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that the central bank is not in a hurry to adjust policy stance as the U.S. economy remains strong. The central banker also reiterated the Fed's commitment to achieving the 2% inflation rate. Furthermore, the Fed chair said that he has had no contact with the U.S. President Donald Trump. The U.S. president renewed his attacks on the Fed just hours after this decision. In a social media post, he said that the Federal Reserve and Powell have failed to stop the problem they created with inflation.
With our policy stance significantly less restrictive than it had been and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5%. I think where the committee is very much in the mode of waiting to see what policies are enacted. We don't know what will happen with tariffs, with immigration, with fiscal policy and with regulatory policy.
Well, the government held an all-party meeting ahead of the budget session of the Parliament. The meeting was convened by Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi and saw representatives from various political parties. The budget session will begin tomorrow with the tabling of the economic survey. The union budget will be the day after, on the 1st of February. The session will conclude on the 4th of April. Well, speaking of the budget, here's a CNBC TV18 exclusive. 48 hours to go for the union budget. Sources are telling CNBC TV18 that the government is likely to announce measures to provide some relief to the middle class and increase their spending power. Parishit Luthra joining us now with more details. Parishit, tell us.
Well, simplification of the tax system, ease of paying tax and putting more money in the hands of middle class are going to be big themes in the union budget. Sources tell us that in interministerial consultations, some quarters of the government have expressed the need to provide relief to the middle class. And the expectation here is, and the feedback here is, that there should be relief in income tax, also hiking exemption limits, at least for people who are earning up to 15 lakh rupees. Now, how does this take shape in the new tax regime? That is something that remains to be seen. Earlier, we have reported that the government is likely to announce more tweaks in order to encourage people to join the new tax regime. Having said that, many people in the government have been saying that we need to put more consumption power, more money in the hands of middle class to consume more and also put growth back on track. So driving consumption, the growth agenda for the long term will be major focus areas. When it comes to manufacturing, there have been PLI schemes which have been announced by the government over the years, but this time measures are being considered to support labor-intensive manufacturing in sectors like textiles, furniture, food processing, where India can have the China plus one advantage. So we could possibly see some measures, some ease of doing business measures, or maybe fiscal measures to support these industries as well. Decriminalization of laws. There has been a lot of feedback from the industry that many of the tax laws, many of the other legislations in the country need to be decriminalized, and a very strong message on that needs to go out from the government. So we are likely to see that in the union budget. Simplifying the way in which taxes are paid both by the common man and the industry. That is something we could see. Also, measures to support ease of living for the middle class. That is something we might see in the union budget. And finally, a significant support package for MSMEs. This has been the ask, and there is a feeling that MSMEs need hand-holding and financial support. So let's see what the finance minister does on that front.
Well, staying with the budget, coming up at 9:30 p.m, Budget Banter with CNBC TV18's editors. Catch a special show where our editors in Delhi and Mumbai get together to talk all things budget, the key expectations, any potential tax relief, and how the stock markets will react. Tune in at 9:30 p.m. tonight. Well, the Union IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw has announced that India will begin work on creating its own foundational AI models, along with lines of ChatGPT, Gemini and DeepSeek. Now, speaking on this occasion, he also said that the government is not just working solely on LLMs, but is also working to provide compute power, in fact, to the tune of 18,600 GPUs, of which 10,000 are already here in India. Take a look.
The second big mission, as you know, was to develop our own model. And over last almost 1.5 years, our teams have been working very closely with the startup ecosystem, with the researchers, with many professors, और उन सब के साथ बातचीत करके we have created the framework which will be launched today. We are calling for proposals to develop our own foundational model, and we believe that there are at least 6 major developers who will be able to create foundational models in the next 8 to 10 months on the outer limit. Or every system which needs to be tested on security parameters will be tested and decisions will be taken. Good thing is DeepSeek is an open source model, and we are very soon going to actually host DeepSeek on Indian servers. We'll be hosting that entire the way we have hosted Llama.
Well, that was the Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw confirming that, in fact, DeepSeek is coming to here in India on Indian servers. A big concern that the minister said is critical for addressing the privacy-related issues about data, ensuring that data of Indian users stays in India. And not just that, India will also be making certain tweaks to it. I, in fact, was going about the canteen, having a cup of tea, understanding what this issue is all about and helping it break down for the benefit of our users. What really does it mean when we say that DeepSeek's an open source AI model is coming to Indian servers? Take a look. To understand what really has transpired with this announcement being coming from Ashwini Vaishnaw. Now, let's assume, and I'll explain that with the help of an analogy, the analogy of the humble tea, the common denominator between 2.8 billion Indian and Chinese. Now, for example, let's assume that DeepSeek is this Chinese tea in this cup of tea. Now, what's important is that this is an open source AI model. What that effectively means is that the core code, which is the heart of the model, which is the recipe of the Chinese tea, is publicly available. So what the Indian government is proposing is that we'll use this recipe of the Chinese tea and replicate it here on Indian shores, on Indian servers, and have exactly the same model here present in India for Indian users. But that's not all. Let's bear in mind, we like our masala chai, like most things in life, we like a little tadka in our life. So we'll add a little input to this. We'll add some components. We'll add some sugar. We like some sugar in our tea. We'll definitely add some ginger. We like ginger as well. And let's not forget the milk in the Indian tea. And having done that, we'll come to the finished product, which of course is a humble masala chai, is a humble cutting chai. So why are we doing all of this? Why is Ashwini Vaishnaw doing all of this? Well, the long and short is, number one, let's not forget the obvious out of the way, which is the masala chai tastes a lot better. But having addressed with the obvious, the other two key components why the Indian government is doing is number one, all the components that we added, the sugar, the ginger, the milk, what that essentially represents are tweaks that Indian engineers will be able to do on Indian servers to this DeepSeek model. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, let's bear in mind there were niggles with DeepSeek when it initially came out. It wouldn't accurately answer questions about, say, the 1962 war or the status of Arunachal Pradesh. So this masala chai, with all these components, represents tweaks that the Indian engineers will be able to do on the Indian servers so that it becomes slightly more comprehensive. But the second and perhaps a larger concern that the government has is that the government doesn't want you sipping tea from the Chinese cup of tea, as that will leave your imprint, and by your imprint I mean your data with the Chinese servers. What the Indian government is essentially saying, let it come here and have a cup of tea from the Indian cup of tea, the Indian server, so that your imprint, your data stays safe within Indian shores. So this chai pa chacha is the long and short of why the Indian government is bringing DeepSeek on Indian servers to Indian shores. I hope that answered some questions there on DeepSeek coming here to India. Now, moving ahead, SoftBank is in talks to invest up to $25 billion in ChatGPT-owned OpenAI, which will make it the startup's top backer. In fact, in November, OpenAI allowed employees to sell about $1.5 billion worth of shares in a tender offer to SoftBank. SoftBank could now invest anywhere between $15 billion to $25 billion directly into OpenAI. Some of these funds will be used by OpenAI to pay for its commitment to Stargate. Stargate is a joint venture between Oracle, OpenAI and SoftBank. Now, infrastructure conglomerate Larsen & Toubro posted its highest ever order inflow of over 1 lakh crore rupees in the third quarter. The overall potential order pipeline stands at 5 lakh crore rupees. Quarterly revenue was above expectations, growing 17% year-on-year. However, profits missed the expectations despite rising 14%. This as operating margins contracted owing to a 50% rise in cost of raw materials. Well, speaking of earnings, Dabur's third quarter numbers have come in line with the street's expectations. Net profit rose 2%, while revenue grew by more than 3% on an annual basis. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, the company's CEO Mohit Malhotra said that Dabur is targeting low to mid-single-digit volume growth going forward. He added that Dabur's food business was impacted due to the winter. Well, and speaking of earnings, Bajaj Finserv's net profits rose by 3.4% in third quarter of the fiscal. The company's revenue grew by 10%, while assets under management surged by as much as 28%. A significant contributor to this growth has been Bajaj Housing Finance, which recorded an AUM growth of 26%. The company's asset quality saw a slight deterioration, with both the gross and the net non-performing assets rising marginally. Now, the insurance regulator has barred companies from raising premiums for senior citizens by more than 10% without prior consultation. Insurers need now the regulator's approval to withdraw individual products meant for senior citizens. Yash Jain is joining us now with more on that story. Yash, tell us, what are you picking up? Why such a plan by the regulator?
Well, Ashmit, the regulator starts by talking about how they've been concerned about multiple instances of very steep increase when it comes to premiums, health insurance premiums paid by senior citizens. We've come across instances multiple number of times when the increase in premiums for senior citizens has been 60, 70, 80, even doubling of premiums have happened. And hence this move from the insurance regulator, IRDAI, a very significant move where the regulator says that any health insurer or any general insurance company cannot increase health insurance premiums for its senior citizen policy holders by more than 10% in an individual year. The regulator also says that if there are situations where an insurer wants to or needs to increase the premium of more than 10% for senior citizens, it will have to put an application with the regulator. The regulator will consider it, will consider the merits of the argument of the insurer, and only after getting an approval from the regulator would the insurer be allowed to increase the premium of more than 10% for its senior citizen policyholders. Apart from that, some more changes made in favor of senior citizens. The regulator said that insurance companies cannot withdraw individual health insurance products for senior citizens. Also, what they've said is that insurance companies will have to work, for a common empanelment of hospitals when it comes to health insurance products, as well as negotiate packages with hospitals. This would be on the lines of the government's PMJJBY scheme, where the insurance rates will have to be standardized and will have to be in accordance with the PMJJBY scheme. So, of course, a very important development, a good news for senior citizens policyholders in terms of having an orderly increase when it comes to the health insurance premiums.
Right, Yash, thanks a lot for that. So clearly the IRDAI aiming to protect senior citizens policy holders. Now, from one regulator to the other, SEBI has restricted financial influencers from using livestock prices to give trading advice, even under the guise of educational content. The market regulator's new rules mandate the use of stock prices with a 3-month delay. Additionally, registered entities, including mutual funds, are not allowed to pay unregistered entities for any direct or indirect association.
This is kind of a lazy way of regulating, really. Instead of going after the person who's violating the law in terms of making recommendations without license of either research or investment advice, you're basically saying, like Deepak said, anybody who walks in a road which has a criminal, you'll be liable for his action. It's SEBI's job to control that person. And therefore, I think they really need to kind of relook at this. Certainly, anybody who is making giving stock tips, giving investment advice, etc., is in direct violation.
And coming up on India Business Hour, Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party doubles down on their comments, accusing Haryana government of polluting the Yamuna just ahead of the Delhi elections. An exclusive conversation with Delhi CM Atashi and senior Aam Aadmi Party leader and former Minister Manish Sisodia in just a bit. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram, and JioCinema. Now, India's real estate sector is booming, but the industry is facing significant hurdles. Developers say that affordable housing segment is under pressure and they're looking for decisive support from the union budget. CNBC TV 18's Shilpa Rani Petta and Rumi Chakraborty outline their wish list, including higher home loan rebates, relaxed limits for affordable housing and incentives for rental housing. Take a look.
Affordable housing was supposed to be a game changer. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana (PMAY) made home loans of up to 25 lakh rupees available for properties priced at 35 lakh rupees. However, developers say these limits no longer align with rising costs in metro cities, making it harder to tap the affordable housing market.
The numbers tell the story. According to a Knight Frank report, sales in affordable housing dropped to 30% in 2024. Real estate players are pushing to increase the house value limit of affordable housing from 35 lakhs to 50 lakhs in cities like Mumbai and Delhi, where affordability is being redefined.
The luxury segment is going very strong, but whereas affordable housing is almost, I would say, more than 30% less. They give a fixed rate of interest at 5%. The benefit will be long period, and people will come forward to take bigger loan and come to the affordable housing.
We receive a 4% interest rate subsidy or on a loan amount of 8 lakhs. And this is provided that the total loan doesn't exceed 25 lakhs in a house valued at 35 lakhs. Now, this is generally fine, but in major large metro cities like Mumbai, this becomes difficult as some of the houses exceed this limit. So we need to sort of bring this limit up to 50 lakhs at least for major cities, so that a larger number of urban people under the affordable housing can get covered.
Tax rebates are another big ask. Currently, home loan interest rebates under Section 24B of the Income Tax Act are capped at 2 lakh rupees. Developers argue that this just isn't enough to keep pace with the rising home prices and are demanding the rebate to be raised to at least 5 lakh rupees.
I think it's important to enhance the tax rebate on the interest rates from 2 lakhs to a minimum of 5 lakhs. And that would again benefit a lot of people under the affordable housing.
But here's the twist. Affordable housing isn't just about ownership anymore. Real estate players are making a strong case for rental housing incentives this budget. Why? Because millions of homes under 50 lakh rupees are sitting empty thanks to low rental yields. The proposed solution? A 100% tax exemption on rental income up to 3 lakh per year for homes valued at 50 lakh or less.
Get a 100% exemption for rental income of up to rupees 3 lakh per annum for housing costs up to 50 lakhs. So if the house is up to 50 lakhs, it's in the under 50 lakh category of affordable housing, then that rental income that comes up to 3 lakhs per annum should be 100% exempt from income tax.
So here's the real estate wish list for Union Budget. Update outdated limits for affordable housing, enhance tax rebate on home loans, and give rental housing the boost it desperately needs. All eyes on February 1st to see if the government delivers. In Mumbai, Rumi Chakraborty.
Now, an American Airlines aircraft carrying 64 people on board collided with a U.S. Army helicopter mid-air moments before landing in Washington's Ronald Reagan Airport. Both the aircraft crashed into the Potomac River and there were no survivors. The flight was arriving from Wichita in Kansas. This appears to be the worst air incident in the country in the last 15 years. Massive search and rescue operations began after the incident, with around 300 first responders arriving at the scene.
Despite all those efforts, we are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident. And we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter.
And while staying with the U.S., its economy grew at a rate of 2.3% in the last quarter of calendar year 2024. This is lower than what the economists at Dow Jones were expecting. Well, coming back home, Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party have doubled down on their accusations against Haryana government of polluting the Yamuna River. Speaking to Timsy Jaipuria, Chief Minister Atashi has claimed that toxin levels have dropped after the Aam Aadmi Party raised the alarm. Manish Sisodia, meanwhile, slammed the BJP over the law and order situation in the capital. Delhi, keep in mind, remembers, will vote on the 5th of February.
दिल्ली में जो पानी आता है वो यमुना से आता है। दिल्ली में यमुना हरियाणा से आ रही है। बिल्कुल। फिर जो पानी आता है उसको हम जो यमुना में पानी आता है उसको हम अपने वाटर ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट्स में ट्रीट करते हैं और फिर दिल्ली में अलग-अलग जगह लोगों के घरों में जाता है। अब जो पानी हरियाणा से आता है उसमें एक एलिमेंट होता है, एक पोल्यूटेंट होता है अमोनिया। जब ये अमोनिया 1 ppm के लेवल तक होता है तो हमारे वाटर ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट से ट्रीट करके वो पानी आगे पोर्टेबल हो जाता है, हम भेज देते हैं। हमने जिस दिन से ये मुद्दा पब्लिक डोमेन में उठाया, हमने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करी, हम इलेक्शन कमीशन पे गए, अरविंद केजरीवाल जी ने बार बार अपने भाषण में दिया, ये अमोनिया कम कैसे होना शुरू हो गया। आज वो अमोनिया का लेवल 7 से गिरकर 3 पर पहुंच गया है। दैट मीन्स उनके ही कंट्रोल में था ना। जैसे उन्होंने अपने आप बढ़ाया, उन्होंने अपने आप घटा भी दिया। और चुनाव से 1 हफ्ते पहले अगर लोगों के घरों में खराब पानी आ रहा है या अगर लोगों के घर में पानी ही नहीं आ रहा, तो ऑब्वियसली ये इलेक्शन के माहौल को खराब करने की कोशिश है। देखिए, मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी से ये कहना चाहती हूँ, आपको चुनाव लड़ना है, आप मुद्दों पे लड़ो, आप हमसे आमने सामने आके लड़ो, आप अपने काम बताओ, हम अपने काम बताएंगे।
क्या फ्रीबीज इतना दे पाना दिल्ली के फाइनेंसेस को सूट करता है?
2015 में जब हमने काम करना शुरू किया था, हमारे पास 30,000 करोड़ का बजट था और उससे पहले 4-5 सालों में देखोगे तो वो 1,000 करोड़ रुपए हर साल का बजट बढ़ता था। 2015 से 2020 तक पहुंचते पहुंचते 30,000 करोड़ का बजट एकदम 60,000 करोड़ का हो गया। हमने टैक्स के रेट्स कम किए। जब वैट था, वैट रिजीम में हमने टैक्स के रेट्स जबरदस्त कम किए, 14%, 13% से उठा के 5% कर दिए, जिससे टैक्स पेयर के ऊपर बर्डन कम हुआ और उसने टैक्स देने में अपनी आसानी समझी, शान समझी। सरकार को ज्यादा पैसा मिला, उसको ईमानदारी से इकट्ठा किया, इससे सरकार के पास पैसा ज्यादा आया। तो पहले 5 साल में ही 30,000 करोड़ से बजट होके 60,000 करोड़ रुपए हो गया।
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. The news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.